Hi guys, Frugal Gal here with a little different video, and if you're here for jewelry or things, you might not want to watch this one, but that's up to you. It has a little bit of jewelry in it. So go get you a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, and sit down. I got a story to tell you. Tell you a story. And don't do like me and spill your tea all over your nice vintage tablecloth you had on your table, because that's what I just did. Okay, please disregard the way I look, because there's no makeup, and I just pulled back my hair because it's Sunday and it's laundry day for me, and I'm clean. So let me show you some jewelry. These are just some run-of-the-mill, to look at them, stretchy bracelets. They're plastic, they're not glass. There's two of them. You just think some cheap bracelets, right? But I have a story behind these. Would you like to hear the story? Let's begin. The year was, it really was. The year was 1999. I was in my 20s, let's just say. I was 23. And I was part of a organization, church organization, that gave the opportunity that summer that we could apply if we were 25 years old or under. We could apply and give them a good reason why we should be picked to go to Israel. And we were going to go to Israel and participate with the University of Southern Florida, I believe it was, on an archaeological dig. And that's how they got their people to help them with the dig. That's how, I guess, universities did, because there was a bunch of universities there. There were students there from the university, but they also would get people to volunteer and help them. So I applied, and I got chosen. So I was going to go, and I can't remember exactly the time. I think we were on the I think we were over there a total of 6 weeks. We were on the archaeological dig for 4 weeks, and then 2 weeks we were touring. So we stayed over. So I went over there, and mind you, I'm a country girl. I was 23 years old. I hadn't been very far. I had never been on an airplane. And so my first airplane ride, I'm going to go to Israel, right? So I pack my bags, I get ready to go, and I get on the plane. And it was back in the day where, remember back in the day when you rode an airplane, they actually fed you? Even on a 2-hour flight? I actually got on the plane. I took off out of St. Louis, Missouri to JFK in New York City. And on the plane ride from St. Louis to JFK, there was hardly anybody on the plane. I'm not sure why. And I asked them if I could change my seat so I could be near a window seat, and they said sure, because there was hardly anybody on the plane. And then when I was going to get to JFK, I was going to meet some of the other young people that were going. We were all going to meet in a group at JFK and then get on our flight and go to Israel. Now, I had only talked to one of these. It was both boys and girls. We were both 25 years old or younger. No, it was like 18 to 25. You had to be 18. So I had only talked to one girl, and she was from Idaho. And she said when she met me, she goes, all I know is when I talked to you on the phone, you sounded, she goes, oh boy, this girl is in the sticks. Because I guess, she said I had a really thick accent, but I guess you do to Northerners. I don't know. So I met up with all these people, and, you know, just because you're on a trip with church people, you hope that they've got the same morals as you do, but a lot of times they don't. So I knew something was up when I met some of the girls, and they were in the bar at the airport. I'm like, okay, they don't have the same. That's fine, you know. Takes all kinds. Fine for them, not for me. I don't drink. But anyway, met up with them, got on a plane. We couldn't find. We flew the airline called El Al, which is the Israeli airline. Couldn't find it in JFK Airport. You know, when you go in an airport, you have, you know, the terminals, the desks. Couldn't find anywhere. And so a security guard, now remember, this is for 9/11, so security wasn't as tight, but it was tight to fly to Israel still. A security guard noticed like 4 of us girls were walking up and down, not being able to find LL terminal. And she asked us, she said, what are you guys looking for? We told her, and she oh, you got to come with me. She took us, and it was just a door in the wall, and we had to be let in to go back to it because that's how tight the security was. And like I said, this is before 9/11. This was in June of 1999. So we got back there. We were in line for interrogated for over an hour. I had to bring boots with me because, of course, we were going to be in the desert. We were going. The dig was in Sepphoris, which is very close to Nazareth, right outside Nazareth. And what you learn real quick when you go over to Israel, that Israel is a country that you could drive from the north to the south of it in 6 hours, and from the west to the east, I think in 2 hours. So everything's close together. So you have to get your mindset, especially for an American, you have to get your mindset. And these young people were people from all over the world. My roommates were from Australia and Canada, but I'll get to that. So it wasn't just Americans, it was all of us. So anyway, we get into there, we got interrogated. I was saying I had to bring boots because we were going to be digging, so we were told to bring like construction style boots. They took my boots from me and took them apart to make sure there was no bombs or anything in them. That's the only way you could put it. They interrogated me, that they wanted to know, why are you going to Israel? Are you more Jewish or Catholic? And like, I don't know how to explain that one. I'm not either one. But finally got through, got on the plane. Huge plane, of course. Three compartments. How do you say it? 3 aisles. And we were sitting in an aisle about 5 people, and I was sitting right next to a rabbi. From St. Louis to JFK is about 2-hour flight, 2.5 hour. And then from JFK to Israel was 8.5 hours. Of course, they are about 8 hours ahead of us, and we're the part of Israel we flew. So we got there. We we left the airport, and there was supposed to be a minister there to meet us, but he got held up because he was actually from South Africa, and he wasn't there yet. So we were a bunch of young people under 25 years old. Most of us haven't traveled outside the country, remind you, from different parts of the world. We find that we got on a bus that was rented for us. We tell them where to take us. They take us to the wrong hotel. So luckily we did have some mature guys there, even in their 20s, who took over, and which I guess we as women could too. I'm not saying anything at one, but I guess when you're 23, you're a little less confident in yourself than you are now that I'm 44. We got on, we finally got to where we were going. We flew in, where we flew into was Tel Aviv. And this is 99, so if you remember, we had a war in the 90s, and Tel Aviv was in it, so there was a lot of bombing still there, like the leftovers from bombing. So we could see Tel Aviv, and we could, first time I'm out of the country, first time I'm on an airplane, and I go to a country where I see the remnants of a war. So it was quite an experience. So we go to the next hotel. We're in Tel Aviv. The next morning, we pair off into roommates. The next morning, our minister is there, and we go to where we were staying was at a kibbutz. Now, what a kibbutz is you can think of it like a commune that we had that were real popular in the late 60s, 70s, and there's still communes. There's one here in Missouri. And it's a kibbutz was originally where people lived, and it was a community, and on a certain piece of property, they had a little store there, they had laundry, everything, and they grew their own food and took care of themselves. But they had turned this kibbutz into people lived there. There was residents there that lived there all the time, but there was also sort of a bed and breakfast. Well, their version of bed and breakfast, which was little bitty, best way to describe them is like little houses, like huts, kind of like a tiny house now, where we had 3 small beds and a bathroom and a sink, and I think a small refrigerator. I got paired up with a girl from Australia and a girl from Canada. The girl from Australia and I did not get along because she did not like fat people, and I was fat. Seriously. I mean, she let me know this. Yeah, real nice person. I digress into my story of my beads. But we started, we heard that there was going to be a girl joining us, and she was having trouble because she was from Nigeria. And she was having trouble because at that time, I don't know what the political situation is in Nigeria right now, but at that time, it was they had a coup, and it was a military government, so it was quite a violent, turmoil place. So they were having trouble getting her out of Nigeria, so we were hoping she would get to come. She finally came. She showed up a few days late, and her name was Uche. spelled UCHE. She stayed in a little tiny house next to me. She wasn't my roommate, but she was in the next one. She was very nice, very put together, and I got to talking to her. She was a lawyer in her country. And she was explaining to me how poor her country was and everything, and she was just really nice. But the two girls she roomed with were two of the girls that I had found in the bar in New York JFK Airport. So they weren't the nicest girls. I'm not saying they were mean, but they didn't talk to her. They were snooty. So I went outside one day and she was at the kibbutz because we got up at 4 o'clock every morning. They knocked on our door at 4 o'clock. We got ready. We were left by 4:30, so it was dark because it's so hot, of course, over there in the summertime because they have the same summer season we do. That we would eat a little breakfast and then we would be taken to the site and we would dig and do what we had to do until I think it was 12 or 12:30. And then the rest of the day was ours. Now, one day after we had come back, you're all dirty, take a shower. I came outside and she was outside with most of the people who lived on this kibbutz were older women and men. And she was with one of the older ladies and she was playing Scrabble. I'm like, oh, can I play, And she's like, yeah. And I thought, this is sad that you came over here. I didn't tell her this, but with all these young people and you're having to make friends with the ladies at the kibbutz because your roommates won't hang out with you. But I digress. I started getting to know her and she was so nice and I thought, she's a really sweet person. She's really with it and we have the same faith, so we were talking. And she had an accent because she was from Nigeria. And I asked her, I said, you speak English very well. What's your first language though? And she said French. So she could speak fluent French. And she was a lawyer. She would not tell us her age. Now we were supposed to be, I told you at the beginning, 25 or under, 18 to 25. I think they had let her come because she was from Nigeria. And to have, a blend of people from different countries. We had people from Canada and Australia and England and South Africa, and then she was from Nigeria. And what did I start to say? I'm losing my train of thought. So her first language was French, and she didn't want to tell us her age. So we just knew. She goes, I'm older than you guys. And I thought, do you remember when you used to be so young you thought 30 was old? Yeah, now it's in your rearview mirror way back there. Yeah. I think she was probably over 30. And she felt old. Yeah, those were the days, right? But, so she wouldn't tell us her age, but I know that one thing by talking to her, because we hung out a lot, was she wanted to get married so bad. She just, and a lot of us did. All of us were single. We weren't, none of us were married, of course. And so, and that was another reason to send all those young people over there, was to maybe we'd meet our mate. And some did. There was 2 that got married from that afterwards, and they're still married to this day, and they have children. You have to marry somebody of your own faith. So, she wanted to have children so bad, and we got to know each other. We hung out the whole time, and we promised to keep in touch when we came home. And I remember there was a little store on the kibbutz, and we would go down to the store, and you could buy, it was just a small grocery store, and it had these little rings that were made out of seed beads, and they're stretchy, and they were only our equivalent of a couple pennies to buy them. And I bought her some of those, and she was so happy, and some pretty bracelets that were like that, and she was just so happy, and they were just so beautiful. I mean, you're a lawyer, and it really humbles you to see somebody who, and I by no means was raised rich or poor, just, I don't consider either one, but I just thought they were little trinkets that you'd buy a kid, and she was so happy. She wore them with pride, and she just, it's humbling to see somebody who is humble in that way, because you could tell that she really appreciated something, even though it was a small thing. It was a big thing to her. But anyway, we went home and everything, and I kept in contact with her. She would write me, and I would write her. I still have some of her letters. And she had told me she had a brother in the United States who lived in New Jersey, I believe it was. And he had come to this country and married someone and got his green card. So she would come over sometimes from Nigeria, and he would help her. And she would come to his house in New Jersey and stay in New Jersey with him. When she did, she would call me on those things we used to have, telephones in the house. And we would talk and get to know more about each other, and it was really nice. And she sent me these bracelets. And she sent me a few other things that I don't have anymore, but these were meant more to me because of the little story I told you about the ring. And I was back and forth, and then remember we went in 99, and then in 2003 she told me she was getting married. She had met somebody and she was getting married. Oh, great, you're getting married. She got married in the spring of 2003. I talked to her throughout that year as she came over to the United States, and she never said she didn't feel good to me or anything. She just talked, we just talked. And it was getting around fall of 2003, and I had started at that time. I was out of work, and I had started making jewelry, and I had made bracelets that were just beaded bracelets like these. I didn't make these. She had bought these and gave them to me and sent them in the mail. And I made her a bunch and I sent them to her. I didn't hear back from her. I thought, this is strange. I'm not hearing back from her. I got a letter from her husband. And he said, she died. And he really didn't tell me how she died. She just said she got sick and she died. I was shocked. And by the tone of the letter, I could tell. He said, I hope I still have a relationship with you like she did. And he basically was trying to leech on to us. I just got a weird feeling about the letter. He wanted to stay friends with me so he could get something from me. And I didn't like the letter. It was a creepy letter. So I got a hold of her brother. I had his email. No, I got a hold of him. Yeah, I got his email. I got a hold of him via email. And he said, well, yes, she's passed away. I don't feel comfortable talking about this I think it went on the email. He wanted to talk on the phone, so he gave me his phone number. I called him. He said all of the family believe that her husband killed her. I was like, what? Well, apparently all this past year, she'd only been married to him for like 10 months, something like that. 10 months, something like that. All that past year that she had been going to New Jersey and visiting her brother, every time she came, she was sick to her stomach. And she just kept getting sicker and sicker slowly. And then she died. And he said, we think he poisoned her until she died. And I said, why? Why? She was a lawyer. She owned a car and she owned her own house. That's rich in that country. And I'm sure the house was probably a hut, a tiny house. It was, I'm not saying it's like a lawyer like over in this country. Lawyers, she was still not by any far means rich. And he said, there's nothing we can do about it. He had her buried right away. And he said, you don't understand, in that country, it's so different. We couldn't have her exhumed. We couldn't have any tests run. It's just, we have our own suspicions. So, she died, and her husband got away with it. And so I keep these bracelets to remind me of that. It reminds me of the story, and it reminds me of how much she was appreciative of just little rings. So, sometimes what you want in life isn't the best thing for you. In her case, it really turned out bad for her. She just wanted to be married so bad because she felt she was old. So, just wanted to share a little story. Hope you liked it. I know it's sad, but I'll get to see her again someday.